And thank you for joining us on this Political Pulse. We have State Representative Mike Derby. And Mike, we'll get right into it with state budget. You are chair of the House Committee on Appropriations, co-chair of the Joint Committee on Appropriations, where you and the Senate convene over state spending. And I think what's on top of a lot of people's minds right now is, what does the state budget look like heading into this next year?
Well, thank you. And yes, we're one of the few committees that has actually Senate and House members. We have a total of 18 members, and 9 from the House and 9 from the Senate. And so we do meet jointly during the session, and then we meet jointly outside of session. And so just want to level set on the state budget starts July 1st. So when we go into session in January, we're actually looking almost 18 months into the future, because you've got January through July and then that fiscal year's budget. And so it's, we often talk about, boy, I wish I had a crystal ball. And so the funny thing is, actually on my desk here, I do have a crystal ball that I bring out periodically. So
has it been helpful?
Oh gosh, yeah. And, it's all in fun, but still, we do have, so what that means is we're 2 months into our current year budget, and so that's July and August. And so we do have 2 months worth of data, but 2 months does not make a trend. And then the next week we'll have September's numbers. And so as far as your question, the process is actually the Commissioner of Bureau of Finance and Management is meeting with the governor and the commissioners and secretaries. They're actually putting their budget. We're going to be meeting October 15th with the governor and peer, start to get some early information. And then early December, the governor presents the budget. And as we often say, the budget's a recommendation to the legislature, but it's a starting point.
So just to make sure we're clear on this, so what you're saying is last session, so this would be the session earlier this year, you were starting to put together a budget that will go into effect next July.
This last session, the budget we put together went into effect this July 1st.
Okay, this last July. Okay.
Correct. And so that's why it was 18 months. It was from January, February to July 1st. Mm-hmm. The budget starts July 1st and moves forward.
Gotcha. Okay. So right now, how is it shaping up? You say you have a couple of months of data. So what is that data showing you right now? And you did note that it doesn't show a complete trend, but I am curious what you've seen in the last couple of months.
Right. So from the Legislative Research Council, we get monthly updates, and we get the monthly updates as soon as the numbers are released by the Bureau of Finance and Management. And so Jeff Melhoff is our point of contact at LRC. And so basically, through 2 months, the state is in line with the adopted revenue target. Sales tax and contractors' excise tax are in line with the adopted target, and the bank franchise tax is ahead of target due to timing of bank card revenues. So specifically, really, sales tax is the big driver that provides the bulk of the revenue for the state of South Dakota, and sales tax for the month of for August is a positive 3.4%. The 3-year average for the month is 3%, with last year's growth at 0.6%. So our year-to-date growth is a positive 4.5%. So actually we're doing quite well. We had adopted a target of 5%, so we're only slightly behind our targeted number that we put together during the session.
Gotcha. Do you see federal spending as being a challenge the state's going to have to grapple with this next year, given some of the recent federal changes in spending?
Oh, absolutely. And we've looked at it from federal dollars from a grant standpoint. Some of those grants have been removed. Also, South Dakota Public Broadcasting, for example, they had their Corporation for Public Broadcasting monies cut in the last iteration here. Luckily, state of South Dakota, compared to some states, had major funding cuts, we're going to have some impact, absolutely, but we'll deal with those.
Okay. And where do you see if you had to name the top impacts, where do you see those showing up with where the state might have to take over on some of that spending?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest issues we look at all the time is Medicaid funding. If the feds put more burden on the states to provide more of the share of Medicaid, that gets to be real money very quickly. And so that's really probably the biggest area.
Okay. Do you see any conversations popping up over possibly raising state sales tax in the state? I know we were just talking before we got on the air, and we'll get into that in a second here, that there's a property tax offset proposal. Recent proposal just came in the last less than 2 weeks to raise sales tax up 2%. But just in general, do you think there's an appetite growing to grow sales tax revenues through a higher percentage?
In regards to property tax particularly, I know that committee's met a couple times and they have one more meeting left. I see Senator Melhoff does have a proposal to raise the state sales tax from 4.2% to 6.2%. Would raise about $700 million a year for K through 12 education. That one is the biggest one that I've seen proposed as of this point. I think people look at raising sales tax. It's relatively easy to implement, relatively, as far as that goes. And it gets talked about. It's been raised and lowered over the last few years, and so there's a possibility that can happen. Sales tax is really, we have one of the most broad-based sales tax programs in the country. So we get sales tax on a lot of items. There are some exemptions, obviously, to that, but it's a broad-based tax, and everybody would pay it, corporations and personal sales tax. And then also, because we're a tourism state, one of the talking points about it is, out-of-staters pay a share of it too, so why not take advantage of that? That probably has the most traction. These are early proposals, and we're going to take a hard look at it.
Before we go too much forward, is there anything else you want to highlight on the state budget that you think we haven't gotten to? I say that just because, I don't know if tourism numbers, you mentioned tourism, I don't know if those are numbers that are collected separately. And on top of that, I just based on the 2 months you're seeing, I am curious kind of what your overall prognosis is of state revenue, just looking at those two.
The tourism specifically, I have a lot of friends in the tourism industry, and actually I used to own a property that had lodging and was really involved in the tourism industry. So anecdotally, what I've heard is that sales tax and revenues for created by tourists was down. I haven't seen hard numbers yet. We haven't broken it out yet, but we'll probably know pretty soon. But it was a little softer, and we're coming off of a couple years. When we got through COVID, we had a big downturn. Then we had a record revenue numbers from the tourism industry, and so it's been trending down, and we're actually probably getting back more to normal.
Gotcha. And it's probably, I would imagine it's hard to have a complete picture yet. I noticed this last weekend I was at Spearfish Canyon. I went up to the canyon and I saw a lot of what looked like tourism to me continuing. And I think that just because summer's over, I'm sure there's still a lot of tourism right through the fall with the fall colors and all that comes in to this area, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think we're going to have a very robust fall season. Recently, we had our West River, anecdotally, we just had our West River appropriations tour, and we had needed some more hotel rooms. And as a matter of fact, the LRC started searching for motel rooms here recently in the last 2 weeks, and the town was full. It's like, wow. So the senior travel is really a big time. I think the bus tours have come back, and so it's this time of year. The fall's not as big as the heart of the summer, but it bodes well for us.
Yeah. last week the legislature approved a $650 million prison. This will be built in the Sioux Falls area. What ultimately led to your support of that prison? It did pass. It needed 2/3 vote. It got through both chambers. What ultimately led to your support?
Well, the vote was 51 to 18. We needed 47. And at this point, I have to give a lot of credit to Lieutenant Governor Venheisen for chairing the committee and Governor Roden for walking the process through. As you know, we were attempting to do that during session, and it stalled out. We weren't even able to transfer monies into the incarceration fund. So, Governor decided to put together a prison reset committee, take a hard look at it. They met a number of times, and you have to understand, I kind of started from a position of support for the Lincoln County site, the original design as it was, and but hey, new information, the political landscape, I understand that. So you have to compromise. There's always that position in the legislature. So what happened was we did pivot. There's 4 things in my mind that big issues. One was the site. So we pivoted from Lincoln County, and at the very last 2 weeks, there was a site presented north of Sioux Falls. Actually 2 sites. One, they were each across the road from each other. And at the end of the day, we did pick the Benson Road site. So number 1 was the fact that we pivoted, okay? Number 2 was the fact that we were able to do a redesign and lower the price by $175 million. And as an appropriator, I can appreciate that. As a matter of fact, we had the money for either scenario, and we've got the money now, and we're not going to bond, we're not going into debt. We're going to be able to pay cash once we get some interest, earned interest income. And so that was a big deal. The third thing was, I know there was consternation with Secretary Wasco from the Department of Corrections. She just recently resigned and will be done here in October, I understand, is one of her last days. So that was a big issue for some people, was the leadership. And the fourth and final thing that came to the table that really answered a big concern and a question of mine was to have the contractors do a guaranteed maximum price. It's called a GMP. You have a contractor at risk, which was the 2 contractors that we've worked with. They were able to, with the designs, even though they weren't complete, they were able to guarantee a maximum price. And I know that was a big issue for a number of legislators, including me. And so when you take a look at the whole gamut of what happened, yeah, I was a yes vote and very supportive of it, and want to thank Governor Roden for getting us over the hump.
I figured that locked-in price tag might have been a decent steering point for you, just because you work so closely with the state budget. So if you could highlight a little bit more of that and why that was so important to you, that the contractor said $650 million, we're not going to turn up in 18 months and tell you actually it's going to be this much.
Right. And as a matter of fact, over the last couple years, we had a number of projects coming out of COVID that we did allocate funds for, and it's never a fun process to have them come back and say, hey, we need more money for this, X, Y, and Z. And we had to do that 4 or 5 times. And I think the legislature was just starting to get a little gun shy that, oh, we're going to go down that same path again, and that there'll be more money asked and be allocated. And we just didn't want to do that.
Yeah. The task force, I know right after this was approved, the governor signed a bill establishing a task force.
Correct.
And that task force, it's a multi-focused task force, but essentially looks at the services, the rehabilitation services, faith-based services, other treatment and rehab options to put within this prison, so to really fill out the service portion of the prisons. What do you hope comes from that task force? Like, what kind of weigh-in would you want to have on that?
Well, it was some representatives and senators wanted to wait till session and before they would weigh in and support the prison. I felt this is a dual path. Let's get the prison going. We've put in more programming space for training than was originally designed, and we need to start now on the second path. And so really there's three parts to what I look at. One is diversion. What can we do to keep people out of prison? And that really takes a look at current statutes, legislation, and what are we sentencing people for? So if we can divert people on the front end, that's a good thing. If we can build the prison with more programming and training, that's a good thing. And then the rehabilitation to reduce recidivism, that's a big deal. If we can keep people from coming back, that's a great deal. There's been a good response to this idea of putting together that task force. I know a number of legislators have signed up for it. They're very excited. We're going to bring in ideas from, we're going to look at North Dakota for one thing. I would recommend highly looking at them because for a state of approximately the same size and demographics and a Native American population, they have half the number of people in prison. Why?
So you really want South Dakota to study
Yes.
our neighbors up north?
Yeah, I do. I asked that during appropriations hearings, and I haven't gotten the full answer, but I'm sure this committee will get to the bottom of it. I do know they spend more money on the front end and the back end, keeping people out of prison and then reducing recidivism. So
you're saying so far that's what you've been able to identify that they do maybe a little bit differently?
correct.
Gotcha. Anything else? Were you able to identify anything else through your studying of their model that might lead to that reduced population of people actually in prison?
Well, I think part of it has to do with the laws on the books, and we have a truth in sentencing that we passed where it provides for some mandatory timelines, and I don't think North Dakota has that, and the judges have a little more latitude. And then as a legislature, we talk about being tough on crime. So over the last 5 years I've been there, every year we bring new penalties, harsher penalties to bear. And so by doing that, you're creating a system where people stay longer in prison. So I think we got to take a look at all of that, and I'm confident. I think that was a good outcome from the prison vote here recently.
Are you, and this will be my final question on this, but are you worried that maybe some of the laws enacted are a little too heavy-handed and that's leading to an increased prison population?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the term heavy-handed, but because they were passed with valid reasons, but I think we need to revisit all those. And not only the ones that we've recently passed, but I think you got to open up the book and take a look at what's on the books now. How is that impacting people? And I'm confident that there's good people that are going to take a hard look at that. And so doing all three of those things, diversion, building the prison, and reducing recidivism, we're going to be set up, hopefully, for the next 100 years. We're building a 100-year prison. So you got to start looking at things in a long timeline, not just next election cycle.
Sure. But speaking of next election cycle, you recently did form a PAC backing Governor Rodin's potential bid. I say that because he has not announced yet whether or not he'll run for re-election, but his potential bid for re-election. What led you to form this PAC, and ultimately, I guess that question really means what led you to support Governor Rodin remaining in office for another 4 years after his term expires?
Well, I didn't take this lightly. This is the first time I've created a PAC, and it's called the Strong, Safe, and Free PAC. And so it's basically kind of a co-chair with Senator Arch Beal out of Sioux Falls. To show some support, and as we all know, politics and running for election takes money, and so we wanted to create a vehicle that could garner some early money, and we have, and it's working, and urge the governor that this is in place and would like him to run for re-election. He is the incumbent governor, and I think proof positive, he got the prison vote over the finish line. That was a big deal, honestly, and not only for the state of South Dakota, but for Governor Roden. It was a big deal. And I think it shows that we've got a governor that's working hard, understands the process, knows how to get things done, and so let's encourage him and let's do it again.
Are you hoping he's going to announce soon? We talk about the fact that it's a potential announcement. Are you hoping that he announces soon whether or not he'll run?
I am hoping he announces soon. In his comments, he said earlier that he is not going to say anything until after we get through the special session. Mm-hmm. And I think that was very, very important, is not to mix messages. We wanted to get the prison done, and even the vote for the prison was political. There was a lot of political undercurrents on who voted and who was against it, and so he didn't want to mix up those messages. So we got that done. I'm urging him to run and announce. I'm going to let him pick the date and the time, and I hope he does it.
State Representative Mike Derby. Mike, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and that'll do it for this Political Pulse.